When I collect things, I usually have a specific theme in mind. When it comes to Transformers, I believe the Season 1 cast of the '84 show, Merman from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, astromech droids from Star Wars, and the random G.I. Joe figures I may have had a kid that I adore now in the more modern classified line, to the characters that I wish I had. However, with Godzilla, specifically in the Showa-era, I am not so discriminating.
Bring me everyone. What do you mean everyone?
This video will be focused on an aspect many of us as collectors face, sometimes frustratingly, with mostly rewarding in the end: the desire to build a set of figures specific to a certain theme. Yes, often in my videos I will share my excitement when certain figures pair up really well and complete a specific moment burned in our nostalgia. As a longtime collector of modernized toys of my past, I found myself obsessing with the pursuit of completing some sort of collection based on various goals. As you may have guessed by now, I hope, the driving theme of my Godzilla collecting has been narrowed down to the Showa-era kaiju. I say narrowed down because when I started purchasing fine vinyl goods from Bandai back in the 90s, I was indiscriminate. The ongoing Heisei era of movies were all new, and the updated monsters and a few original new ones were exciting. For every entry released, I usually obtained most of what was offered. As the movies progressed, I became less obsessed with getting everything for two reasons. I was barely out of high school, so budget was an issue, and accessibility was limited, especially when I had no car to drive out and find said items. So, movies like the Mothra trilogy have very few figures in my overall vinyl gathering. The Millennium series reignited my fervor, but after Final Wars and the '98 American film, I was facing slight burnout. At my core, I was still looking to get vinyls of the monsters I saw as a kid. And while I had many of Godzilla series from Bandai years earlier, you could see my mini set of videos on that in the link above, it was far from complete. But as Bandai started releasing figures at a smaller scale more frequently, I began to fall back in the line, mostly thanks to their release of Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla 1975. Today, I've refined my collecting towards the first era of Godzilla. While most are fixated on either Shin or -1 or the Monsterverse, I'm an old head who likes my kaiju with more classic feel of the man-in-suit variety. As I was accumulating these sporadic releases of Sofubi from the Showa period, I began to realize it might be possible to get a complete set of kaiju to represent the movies they were derived from. A specific Godzilla suit with his allies and enemies that you could display in a chronological way. Along the way, Bandai has not only released standard versions of these kaiju, but alternate flying and posing forms as well, providing you with options on how you prefer to represent said films. While we're still quite a way from completing the full run of films, I'd like to show what we can work with as of now. I'll skip the original film because there really isn't a set to be made, it's just Godzilla. But the inferior sequel is another matter. Bandai released these two in a very surprising move back in 2023, and the quality and sculpt is exceptional, especially with Anguirus 1955. Easily one of my favorite pieces in all of my 6-inch vinyl, this figure captures the ferocity of the monster and the goofiness face on, as well as the awkwardness of a man trying to play a quadruped rolled into one amazing replica. Keeping both him and Godzilla 1955 in a monotone palette is also inspired, making these two a great set to display. The Gyakushu Goji is one of my favorite Godzilla designs, and I am super happy to have him. But often struggle with whether I should purchase the expensive version from the Memorial box set from years before, despite its erroneous dorsal plate positioning. Here, the dorsals are good, and while this figure isn't as well defined as Anguirus, he's still a fantastic partner piece. This one is a cheat of sorts, as I use the Tokyo SOS Mothra Imago as my default for this era. The figure is glorious, as I mentioned in my review, but it's also starting to warp at the wing connectors, so I'll eventually need to find a replacement for a proper 64 version. The Moso Goji, aka Godzilla 1964, is another Bandai banger, truly capitalizing on the suit's unique glowering posture and attitude. One of the finest Godzilla figures released in recent years. However, when it comes to the Mothra larva, I only have one, so missing his twin is putting this as... Again, not a complete set. I finally have a 1964 King Hedorah, and I have the Godzilla series 1964 Mothra larva. The only Rodan I have is the 1956 version, so that's an incomplete. So far, the 65 Godzilla is only here in his posing form. The standard version of Daisenso Goji is set to be released this year, but a Rodan 1964 is nowhere to be seen. Watch, as soon as I post this video, he'll be announced. Again, it's a cheat to use the 56 version here, but we get an idea of what this could look like eventually. This is a set of films I am looking forward to completing. Having Hedorah was one of those unexpected treats from Bandai. I assumed the more difficult kaiju to cast in vinyl would be an easy pass, coupled with the notion that the sea monster was not popular enough to warrant an effort. But to my surprise, he was released in 2023, and I'm pumped to have him in my possession. Again, the 65 standard release of the Daisenso Goji will likely be paired with my sea monster set, until Bandai pulls a Godzilla 1971 stunt. And with the addition of the giant condor and my placeholder Mothra, this is a set that isn't quite there yet. We're almost there. The lack of Kumonga is something that is sorely needed for this, and the next two films, as is the ugly Godzilla from this movie. Minya, the giant that he is, looks imposing next to Kamakuris, which should be the other way around. Again, we have the majority of the film's kaiju cast. Godzilla 68, the Soshin Geki is still a great figure, and is the premier lead figure here. The 65 Baragon is a decent stand-in. Varan has a huge presence here, unlike the movie. Minya is still a big baby, and Rodan is still wrong. Anguirus is the 1972 version from the Dream 5 box set, but works really well here. Gorosaurus is from Playmates, but fits in really well here as well, both in scale and in colors. King Hedorah feels diminished by his sculpt, especially with his wings and neck tucked in too close to his body. Again, Mothra larva is not proper as she needs her red eyes instead of blue, and alas, no Kumonga or Manda. Gabara, another kaiju I never thought we'd get, made his debut last year from the Dream 5 box set. I couldn't be happier. Migrating the Soshingeki Godzilla and Massive Minya into this collection, add Gorosaurus, 72 Anguirus, Hedorah, and Kamakuris to this for the stock footage crew. And we've almost rounded out the cast. Again, Bandai, give us Kumonga. And here we come to the Bandai bully. Hedorah has had so many figures, both in forms and in paint variants. In the movie Monster series, you'd swear he was more popular than Godzilla's Big Five. This movie alone has spawned 2 landing forms, a flying form, and 2 sculpts for his perfect form. A 71 Godzilla, and now a flying Godzilla. Hedorah fans are eating really good. Best part? This was once considered the film that tanked the series when it came out. But here we are, celebrating the fuck out of it. That being said, each of Hedorah's various forms are amazing on their own merit, from sculpt, paint, and scale. Godzilla 1971 is a slight retool of the 68 figure with a nicer paint job and a lighter base vinyl, but overall it helps create the cohesive cast we all want for each film. Flying Goji is on order, so I'll be dropping a review as soon as I get my hands on that figure. Stay tuned! Again, bringing the 71 Godzilla into the fold, along with Anguirus 1972, the proper film version, 64 King Hedorah, a minor stand-in, and Gigan. We have a great collection that is strong enough to hold it down. The recently acquired Godzilla 1973 completes this figure set for me. Jet Jaguar has been in my collection for quite a while, followed by Gigan, doesn't look so dopey as he does on screen here, and Megalon. This collection of figures look good when assembled together. However, I don't get the same passion from these molds as I do from the Raids Again or Terror of Mechagodzilla sets. But man, if I were a kid in the 70s or early 80s and saw these, I would have lost my damn mind. A set of figures that lack the proper main version with a villain for some time now until the release of the Dream 5 1974 Mechagodzilla. Starting with a classic, 1974 Godzilla himself, a great figure that captures the likeness of this film's suit really well, especially in the face. King Caesar has been on its tumultuous issue in terms of what version do you use. The downsized 1998 version that features better paint apps than its original 8-inch, or the Bandai Creation / Monster EX King Caesar. For me, it's the latter, as it resembles the monster's proportions far better, has better articulation, the best part, opposable ears. For the longest time, that same Bandai Creation Playmat's Mechagodzilla 1974 was the only version we had in 6-inch form, with its outstretched arms and wild trajectories, but excellent paintwork. The proportions felt lean and gangly, but the articulation was excellent. However, when Bandai finally released their 1974 official standard, a well-proportioned replica with only 2 points of articulation, so it will look pretty just standing there. In addition to these three, the inclusion of a flying version of the titular villain was made available late last year, and a 2-figure set of fake Godzilla, which I don't own, round out this set. All that is missing now is slack-jawed Angus. But as far as the main cast is concerned, this is still a complete collection. And finally, the set that set me off on the Movie Monster line, and still the finest group of figures in the series in my own humble opinion. Mechagodzilla 1975 and Titanosaurus not only set the expectations of this line, highly detailed and articulated replicas of lesser-known kaiju in Titanosaurus, and suit details like wrinkles, creases, and zipper flaps, all with wonderful paint apps. The line has since ebbed and flowed with these qualities, and has greatly lessened in the years following, but still retains, if not most of those qualities. These two have and will always set the standard of what this line could and should be. Godzilla 1975, just as good, despite utilizing 90% of the previous 1974 mold. The face sculpt is perfect, the colors are great complements to the other two figures. This is a pinnacle collection, and perhaps a second head Mechagodzilla needed to fully round this set out. So, overall, the road to having a cohesive collection of Toho Showa vinyls is still laden with potholes that need to be filled. Being a collector of any modern-day toy line is an exercise in patience, precision, shelf space, and disposable income. Whether you are one who sets out to just collect a favorite monster, movie theme, or everyone, the journey can be brutal, deflating, and in the end, rewarding. What kind of collector are you? Do you collect specific kaiju only, a specific era, or whatever just speaks to you? Comment down below. I'd love to also highlight your collections on this channel. Let me know in the comments if you're willing to share images, and please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more.